space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there. And
Dr. Squee.
Ahoy hoy.
And this week we're talking about the brand new episode of Deep Space Nine. Lower Decks. It's an episode of Lower Decks, not Deep Space Nine.
Lower Decks Space Nine.
Lower Decks Space Nine, I like it. Oh, get that hashtagged. Get it out there. And that's called Hear All, Trust Nothing. And surprisingly, that led us not to Deep Space Nine, but to the Enterprise episode Bound, which we'll also talk about later in the episode.
Yeah, because there was about like a dozen DS9 episodes we could have covered, but we've either already covered them or we've got them earmarked for another sort of run of shows.
Yeah, well, we're doing the Dominion War arc, and we're doing it in chronological order. So to throw one in, because it would have been from the Dominion War, it'd have just sort of ruined it a little bit.
Yeah, it would have done.
I mean, it could have been the next one up, but it just wasn't. So there we are.
No, so we've gone Enterprise instead, and I think it's another one of them episodes that, you know what, it'd have probably took us a while to get round to it in the normal scheme of things. So
to be fair, it fits in well with this episode.
It does fit in well, that's what I mean. We've got Lower Decks to thank again for uncovering these little corners of the Trek universe.
You see, and this is another one, like the last episode of Enterprise, which I remembered really fondly, and then I rewatched it, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, an interesting fact I found out about this week's episode is it's the 859th episode ever of Star Trek.
Okay.
It was just one of them random things I found out today.
Is it one of them, though, where it's debated? Because I remember, like, Paramount have twice claimed the 1000th episode or whatever, or the 900th or whatever.
Right.
And they did it twice, because I remember us trying to work it out. We were like, well, they must be including the short treks, but not the movies, or not including the...
Yeah.
And I think what they did was they announced it and were like, yay, it's the 900th or whatever. But that was including the short treks. So they got to do it again 10 episodes later and go, yeah, it's the... You know what?
Which number episode is this one, did you say, Elliot?
Episode.
What was this one, Elliot?
This was on Memory Alpha. It's the 859th of
859th.
Of 860, because we've already announced next week's episode.
Right.
Or this week's episode.
Oh, is this this week's Lower Decks is the 859th?
Yeah.
I thought you meant Enterprise, so like that sounds like too many.
So this is our 859th episode of Star Trek Special! Woo!
Right.
Which does make it rather... There's a lot of Star Trek still to cover. So going back and doing repeats is a bit soon yet.
I don't know. We might run out. We might.
We could do, we could do. We'll have another chat about it in 20 years' time, see what we're up to by then, and then we'll have another meeting on the subject. But
we should, of course, announce the special thing which, thanks to Elliot, is happening.
Yes.
We've got.
Yeah, we will be doing a Retrek live, but not just live like we're doing now, because we're live now, unless you're listening on the podcast, in which case we're not live. But we will be doing a live, in-person Retrek. May not be branded as Retrek, but it's fine.
And it may not be in your person if you're not there, but if you are there, let's make this as confusing as possible.
You've got to make an effort to turn up this time and not go dying again.
I'll try. I mean, that was an accident. So yes,
you just get one coma, and suddenly you're Mr. Sleepy Bugs.
You just get it thrown back in your face. So at the upcoming Sci-Fi Weekender, which is this November, we will be having a live show. I think we've got an hour to do a panel on when Trek goes wrong. So we're going to be talking about all those bad episodes that we always say we will get to eventually.
And
Or
in a
silly
similar token to today's episode, we decided not to do Code of Honor because we're covering that in when Trek goes vaguely racist.
I mean, there's no vaguely about
Yeah,
it,
okay.
is there?
When Trek goes racially insensitive to a high degree.
Yeah.
It is one of those that I think that will probably come up when we are live.
Yes.
I think it gets an honourable mention, but we're not going to go into it for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
I say it is coverable at one stage.
We
just
may
say how bad it is all the way.
It's
through.
coverable, but you've got to cover it right of pointing out where it's bad.
And we want to have a bit of fun with it, so we'll probably stay away from the more contentious, but that's going to be a load of fun. So if you are at the Sci-Fi Weekender, come and see us live. And yeah, we're going to talk about crazy, silly, bad, terrible, boring, all the bad episodes, but talking about them will be more fun than watching them. We'll give you that as a guarantee.
and I'm quite sure this is a draw for no one, but in case you are interested, if I'm there in my and like the outfit that Cisco is wearing just now, if I'm wearing that, then I've reached my weight loss goals by the time
Excellent.
it comes around. If it's kind of like kind of goes up like a cartoon, sort of rolling up on my stomach, I haven't.
There we go. So that's how you can
may
tell.
Not be dressed in a Star Trek uniform. Depends if I've lost enough weight myself. But last time I tried it, I didn't fit.
I'm currently on water because I'm on a fast at the moment, so I'm committed. That's all I'm saying.
There we go.
I'm not that committed. I'm on wine.
So Hear All, Trust Nothing then, this week's episode of Low X. And we knew they were promising Deep Space Nine. It was in the trailers, but they really went all out Deep Space Nine on this episode. It wasn't just a little reference or anything. It was
just a little visit, was it? This is really a Deep Space Nine episode.
Yeah,
with the
pretty much.
Crew leading it.
This is one of the moments where you're just so glad you don't read anything ahead, or I don't anyway. I had no idea this was coming, and it was such a pleasure when it did for that reason.
Yeah.
So great.
I made that mistake early on with all the new Trek, and I go out my way to avoid any reviews.
And of course, they got 3 of the main crew back again. So you've got Kira, you've got Quark, and I was amazed they managed to get Morn back because I know he is as difficult as Avery Brooks to tie down to an episode, but somehow
he's very expensive per word, I've heard, as an actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is.
So that was amazing. Cool. They really blew the budget getting him in.
Yeah, but he was there. I think we joked about this ages ago that it wouldn't surprise me if they got the actor to sit in a sound booth and say nothing, just to record his lines.
If they'd got a picture of him there, just going, I would pay so much money for that. I would bow every hat to them, and I've got a collection behind me.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but the fact, I knew we were going to see Deep Space Nine, as in see the station, but the fact that they got Kira and Quark and they just slipped back into the roles absolutely perfectly. Yeah, it was just brilliant. It was so good to see.
Think, and this is a very, very minor quibble. It's not really equivalent. It's just something I noticed. I did think, Armin Shimon could have done with the teeth in or something. It's just his voice. He got into it a bit more as he went on, but at the beginning, his voice just didn't quite sound right to me. And I think usually have the prosthetic teeth, and it forces his voice to sound different.
Possibly.
Maybe. I just assumed it was because he's a little bit older than when we last.
Probably because he was a bit older.
That could be it too. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense for the character. I'm guessing it probably is his voice. Again, it just sounded less animalistic. Those teeth force him into this kind of lispy kind of voice.
Yeah, it was clearer than you expect.
With all the Ferengi actors, it's the same. So that was the element which seemed to be missing. But it works. We can just say Quark got older, sounds a bit different. It's all good.
Yeah. And just the deep cuts that they do, the fact that they're going to reopen negotiations with the Karama, which we covered that when we covered Rules of Acquisition, and they were the first contact the Alpha Quadrant had with the Dominion. And that the whole setup of that episode was Quark trying to get a lead that would lead him to the Dominion, and the Karama were the middlemen.
Yeah.
So just again, it just shows the attention to detail. Like they could have just said it's the so and so from the Gamma Quadrant, but they've picked a species
that works.
And also, it was just a lovely twist because you sort of imagine, because at the end of that episode, he left on good terms with them. So it was a nice little twist that they'd kind of fallen out. And I don't want to jump the gun too much, but I did love the fact that when they put in a special replicator, it was the Quark 2000, which I think is a great in-joke to everything around the turn of the millennium, which is when this was going out. Everything was something or other 2000 to sound.
Yeah.
That is a.
They did. They even did WrestleMania 2000, which fair enough, but it should have been WrestleMania 16. So what happens when we actually get to the numbered WrestleMania that should be 2000? It's just going to confuse people.
It's like when they did the second Blues Brothers film, which came out, I think it was in '96. But that early, they were already calling it was Blues Brothers 2000. Like the Doctor Who TV movie, which came out in '96, was set at the turn of millennium because it seemed futuristic sounding. But what happens when we get to the 1999 sequel to the Blues Brothers? We just won't know what to call it.
Well, they need to get cracking with Blues Brothers 3. Right, I'm going to put it out there. I don't mind Blues Brothers 2000. Obviously, it's not a patch on the original, but
the plot is
good
a bit
fun.
The plot is a bit shit, but it's a fun film, good songs.
The Ghost Riders in the Sky bit, I still think is just stunning, where they have the cattle in the brilliant. But when they get turned into zombies and stuff at the end, not so much. And the fact that it just finishes, it just, what? Is that the end? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's like, it makes, anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of things which don't make sense about it, but we'll cover that in Blues Brothering.
Yeah, we'll do Blues. We only need to do 2 episodes of that, so we should be able to get through that. That's doable. I love Shax's reaction to Deep Space Nine, like, Takadasi and just I saw.
It's that
fucking. Isn't it nice how it leads into doing the DS almost the start of DS9? Buy me some time, okay. Fly around slowly like we admiring the pylons.
And
then do it again.
I love the and then they strike up the music swell again. It's just so good.
Yeah, brilliant. And it is a reminder that, even though we think the station's lovely, Bajoran's probably not that impressed. Probably is a bit of a reminder of the occupation. So his reaction's totally normal. But because we love Deep Space Nine, it's like, don't talk about our station like that, Shax. Come on.
It's also that wonderful thing of like, it's that from inside the building they're taking the piss. So like, it's your friends taking the piss. If you don't mind. And like when they're doing the, pretend we're in awe of the pylons. That's basically what they're telling us at the beginning of the show when they around the center. It's like, we're in awe of the pylons. And you do feel like that when you first watch the credits. I think it's well done, but it's like, it's a lovely piss take.
I do want to say, it's great. Like, I've got the animation behind me as my background. And what a lovely job they did of animating DS9.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
How they've done it, how they've drawn it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said, I think this series especially, I don't know why, I think they must have messed up. Like the Cerritos looks really sharp this series, and I think that's what we see paying dividends when they've shown Deep Space Nine as well.
Yeah, and I love how excited the lower deckers are. Like it's the original Quarks.
It's not just a franchise. What? Yes. Well, Mariner's not impressed, is she?
No, Mariner's not.
DS9.
Yeah.
I find that's a wonderful payoff to a very, very, very brief reference in, like, I think they've got one in Picard, and I think, is there a reference in one Disco episode? But certainly you see a Quarks in the Rag City.
Because we talked about it at the time. We said, do we think he's franchised, or has he just moved? And
this is confirmation of that brief reference.
Yeah.
Great. It's great.
And Mariner's B plot then is she's meeting Jennifer's friends, and that is very much a B plot. I'm not knocking it, but that's to give Mariner something to while we DS9 it up,
Yeah.
That definitely felt like a reference to like they've even got t-shirts like it. They've got Disco and Discovery. They've got Ritos. I think this is a slight homage Mickey take to some of the scenes where they've got parties on Discovery in someone's quarters? It just reminded me.
Yeah, most likely, yeah. Did you notice though when they get to DS9 and we get the shot of Ops and everything, it looked like it's now an old Bajor crew. They all had the Bajoran uniforms on.
Yeah.
So maybe has Bajor finally joined the Federation and the station under Bajoran control now?
Well, I think once Cisco left, because funnily enough, just today I've finished watching the last episode of Deep Space Nine, so I've just covered the whole thing. And when Cisco leaves, you kind of get the feeling that Kira's been de facto promoted to run the station.
Yeah, but it could still be.
Also, you probably got a lot of it. Maybe it's just under Bajor control. The Federation aren't maybe needed anymore to govern it.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. I mean, there are Federation.
Bajor's joined the Federation, but without Cisco, is that link between the Federation and Bajor? I think he maintained Bajor allowing the Federation presence.
Yeah, it did large extent.
You see, I don't feel though that. Well, I mean, obviously, if Bajor told them to leave, they would leave. But I don't think the Federation would want to leave. Still, such a kind of strategic into the wormhole and everything like that. I just imagine that she's probably taken over, and there are Starfleet officers about, just like.
Well, there was because there was the Orion
collaboration between Bajor and the Federation. There's no reason why you can't have a Bajoran leader and still.
No, absolutely. I just thought it was noticeable that there was a lot of Bajoran uniforms. I mean, there were always a few in DS9, but.
I mean, and then which they did in What You Leave Behind, the documentary, or What We Left Behind. And they were doing that kind of like breaking down what a reboot of DS9 would be. And they had Kira as the Kai. And it was a Bajoran place of worship because it was like they were all looking forward to the Cisco's return one day. And
the Kira and Shax, like I feel like this is a bit of a dig at Deep Space Nine. Again, an affectionate one, but it's always like, everybody Kira meets seems to be like, well, we served together in the Resistance and we did this and we did that. And so it's no surprise that Kira and Shax know each other, but they do have a bit of fun with the, well, I saved your life in so-and-so, and well, you did this.
And they're still doing it throughout the whole episode. It's brilliant.
Yeah, they're just constantly arguing about it.
Who was, who won.
Yeah. And then we meet the other Orion guy, and this is what led us to Enterprise, is that we get he's giving it this whole, I'm a pirate, and how many ships have you stole, and what's the best thing you've stolen, and all of this business. I mean, I loved it still, but sorry, Lodex, you've done this to us one too many times. I knew straight from the get-go he was going to turn out not to be a pirate, but I think we're meant to probably guess it. Yeah, it doesn't affect it, but yeah. And then Jennifer's friends,
uncomfortable, don't they?
It does, yeah, because we still not got the full backstory to Tendi. We know that her parents were in the Orion Syndicate, but it's been implied.
Federation and sort of not associated to that.
And it's been implied that she was or is very, very important in Orion circles. So I'm sure we'll pick up the thread again. That seems to be what they're doing, like with the stuff with Rutherford last week, that they're just tugging on these threads just a little bit every so often to remind you that it's there.
Like, this really reminds you it's there. Like, I loved Tandy in this episode. I think.
Oh, she was great, yeah.
I think Tandy almost steals the show away from it being a DS9 episode, how she goes in this episode.
I mean, yeah, I'm just shipping her and Rutherford so hard. I want them to get it on. I'm sorry, I just want it to happen now. There's only so many series.
They're just friends.
Oh,
maybe.
Come on. Now.
Rutherford's great, though, where he's like, I want to dangle my legs off the promenade.
That's great. I mean, he's so infectious with that kind of spirit. And of course, like, they don't even have, this is how good it is. They don't even have to say Nog or Jake, but the second he says that, that's exactly
what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he says in the Hollow videos, so you imagine that at some point, probably Quark has monetized his Hollow videos. Like, oh, do you want to see what?
There's no probably about it.
Yeah, do you want to see what was happening on the ground level at the war? Right, here we go. And Jennifer's friends are into Boimler, so Boimler's hot apparently, and he's quite popular with the ladies.
Well, exactly.
That's true, actually. Yeah,
they're really building up his legend this series.
Yeah, it's only Mariner and Tendi who appear to be immune to his charms. Everyone else thinks that Boimler's the bee's knees.
There was an early episode where it looked like Tandy and Boimler could have been about to get it on.
Yeah, true.
You mentioned that at the time.
I was going to say it's like, oh, maybe it's once you get to know him or you find out what a nerd he is, but it's like on the Vineyard, they seem to know him very well, and still well up for it.
Yeah. Maybe Bull Boimler will, start putting himself forth. Who knows? By the end of the season, sounds like he's got no shortage of offers anyway.
Well, this is the thing. I love this idea that he is getting these offers left, right, and centre. But I bet if you asked him, he'd go, "Oh no, girls fancy me," because he just seems so blind to it. And I've had friends who are like that, and it's just it's very well observed, I think.
I love when they start telling the ghost stories and they say it was a dark and stormy 73912, or they use a star date instead of it was a very dark and stormy night. Yeah. It's
yeah.
Remember, I had a mate at middle school who, for everything, he'd been told by an English teacher once that it was a dark and stormy night was a good to start a story. So he started every story he wrote with "it was a dark and stormy night." That's
a very school thing to do, though, isn't it? When you
it is, yeah,
like that.
Have you guys seen the film Throw Mama from the Train?
Years ago, yeah.
At the beginning of that film, Billy Crystal is trying to write something, but he's also teaching an English class a creative writing class to make ends meet. And he's like trying to type on this long typewriter, and he's like, the night was humid. The night was this, then the other. And then he tries to, and he can't even get the first line out. And all he's got is like, right, the night was humid. That's it. That's all. And then he goes into his class, goes, right, Michelle, whoever, like, yeah, you're about to read your story next. It's like, the night was humid. Right, class over. I'm getting a headache in my eye.
I remember that scene now. Yeah, you've like sparked a memory there. And
it's got Janeway in it.
Is it?
Kate Mulgrew plays his ex-wife.
Oh, there we go then. There we go. And that woman off the Goonies as well, isn't she the mummer that they want to throw from the train?
And Danny DeVito, just to complete the cast list.
Yep, I remember Danny DeVito. Yeah, I'm remembering bits of that film now. Anyway, right, I need to... We need to stay on Star Trek, not the throw mummer from the train cast.
Yeah.
The Orion guy then won't leave them alone, and he's got a sea shanty, which I quite enjoyed.
That's nice.
And it's all about like killing people, robbing people, and everything.
And again, I might just be seeing things where they're not, but it's like that felt like a nod to lockdown when sea shanties came back in fashion.
Yeah, see that. No, to be fair, that guy on TikTok, that were brilliant. He did well with that.
Great. Yeah.
And that weirdly, it was a really kind of touching sort of community effort that I don't know what they call it, but where you add your video to someone else's video. I know there's a special word for it, but I'm just not down with the kids enough to know what it is. But where one person did it, and then someone else did it, and then someone else had come on playing a violin, and someone else had come on. I just thought that was lovely. At a time when we had no social interaction, that this community sprang up and did it, and the guy got a #1 hit out of it. So well done.
Yeah.
Well done. There is a Star Trek version of that as well, that song, which I used as the intro to a few episodes that we did for the Star Trek Wars podcast. So if you want to, just a little plug for another Star Trek podcast there, if you want to check them out, the roundtable episodes that I shared, we have the Star Trek version of the sea shanty on there. Quark then, big row with the Caramel over the Quark 2000.
we see this thing, don't we, when the camera are boarding? DS9 in the first place. So we see that he's got something strapped to his chest, and you think, at first you think, oh, what they're going to do here? Is it a bomb or what? And they're planning to hijack, and it turns out actually their motives are right, what they're doing.
It's just really nice the fact that you've got like they're starting to flounder because they've just been sent on this peace mission and they're just everything's going wrong. It's like, Quark, you'll save us. Those bastards.
Yeah. It's weird because for a minute I almost bought what Quark's saying, like, no, it's because they didn't help us in the war, and you're like, oh, that's weird. Quark's like developed a lot here, and we're seeing that he's got a bit of leftover, not necessarily PTSD, but war wounds, psychological war wounds. And no, he's not. He's just trying to stop them rumbling him for stealing the technology.
Actually, it's the Thomas Riker maneuver, because when he first comes on Deep Space Nine and sees O'Brien, he picks a fight with him so he can't get questioned or anything or not remember something. Yeah,
you're right. It's maybe picked that up from old Tom Riker. What happened to Tom Riker? I feel like Lower Decks could give us that answer finally.
Yeah, I'd like to think that Kira kept a promise and went and rescued him.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But then we also found out that all the Maquis got killed when the Dominion sided with the Cardassians. So maybe they kept him as a military threat. They didn't want to kill him.
It was a prisoner of war, and they had made promises that he wouldn't be executed. And are very funny about the law that they do keep them. You don't break a sentence.
Maybe when they liberated Cardassia, they might have got him back at that point. Yeah. Who knows? They should just have like a scene of him. It just randomly cuts to him at some point. It's like the guy in the taxi at the end of Airplane who's just like, well, I'll give him another 5 minutes. And then if he's not back. So Mariner then turns out Jennifer wants her to be a bit bossy with her friends. So she phases them.
Just brilliant. You can just see her seething at this kind of sea of very sophomorish girls.
She's not into it at all, is she?
No. And then it's like, well, it'll look suspicious, so they have this sort of romantic thing where they stun themselves, and I'm like, you're probably still going to get in trouble for this, Mariner, because you didn't really need to stun them all. Like, yes, they were getting a bit hysterical, but...
Well, no, she did actually need to
it was for the air. Yeah,
because at this point we've got the Karama have set off the device that's killed all power, and because the Cerritos is stopped, it's affected that as well.
Yeah.
So no life support, and then panicking, they're going through oxygen quick.
So she did him a favour.
Yeah.
I also like when the ship does stop and kind of reverses away from the wormhole, they use the term, you were nearly gammered.
Yes.
Well, like before that, we've got like one of the best scenes where Tandy goes full pirate mode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we've had this guy and bragging at what a pirate he is, and they get locked in. So you have obviously Rutherford's there. Well, you can pirate us out of here. And he has to fess up that, no, actually, I was adopted, which is very much what happened to Worf.
Very true, yeah.
And in a way, he's learned what he's learned from books and all that, and hollow images of what Orions are like. But he's not done it. And you have Worf, who's massively honourable compared to most Klingons.
Yeah.
Because he learned Klingon culture from books and hollows. And
yeah, that's a good point.
And I wonder if there's a bit of a thing there that, as often, like in Worf's case, it was brilliant, but this guy's just actually a wuss.
Yeah, if you don't have like first-hand access to a culture, you're effectively modelling yourself on like an archetypal view of it that probably doesn't exist.
Yeah, because Worf took on the very serious side of the kind of Klingon aspect.
Yeah,
and very honourable.
He calls him on it all the time, going, it's like, I know Klingons who will do a belly laugh, which would make you kind of cry or whatever she says. And yeah, it's very true. Yeah, I think that's what DS9 did really well as well, was like point out where, like, I think TNG treated him as if he was a Klingon. It's like, because it felt like they didn't know better of Klingons, whereas Jadzia has worked with them, so she could call him on how he is actually different to them.
Yeah, she's like, no, Klingons are fun, Worf. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, it was so noticeable. Sorry, I know it's slightly off topic, but when I was watching What We Left Behind, or
What We Leave Behind.
What We Leave Behind. When they go through the montage of like everyone's memories, when Worf looks back wistfully and there isn't one clip of Jadzia in it, it's like, that's just me. Look, I get that you wrote her out and like that's questionable on its own, but to not even including her, she was married to him, and he's going, it's like, well, I don't even remember.
It was because they didn't want to pay her, did they?
Would they have
they would have had to pay her to use her in the clips, which is why.
A minimal amount.
Well, I don't know. I think it was a bit of 6 2 3s, but they didn't really want to pay it, and I don't think because of the circumstances of a departure, she offered them a particularly good deal on it. So the sides were not able to come to an agreement, I think was the official.
Yeah.
Wow, just when you say it's just so jarring, it's like, yeah, not one.
Oh, it's weird. Yeah, it's like, really? Anyway, so we've
gone off because here you get Tandy and she grabs that tool.
Yeah.
And it's straight through the door. She knows what to do. She fights them all. There's the guy with the gold tooth, and she doesn't just fight him. She notices the gold tooth and has to nick it. And it's like, shut up, I'm pirating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, you just think she's being a sadist, but she does use it at least later.
Yeah, she does go full on.
Shut up, I'm pirating.
Yeah, she goes full on Orion.
It's always so satisfying when it's like the meat character who then goes nuts.
Yeah, definitely. And the upshot of it all is Captain Freeman ends up negotiating this deal, which does quack out of 76% of his profits.
Yeah, geez, that was mean. That was
yeah,
mean
it's like
that's
Brady. Really, 76%
of that.
Oh yeah, he'll take it out of the
all his overheads and his extra taxes and all.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll come out of the net profit, won't it? And he'll be able to show that none of them actually make any profit whatsoever. So
exactly. I'm sure if he tried to hide his profits offshore, then the government would intercede and stop that happening, and not just let big business like the Ferengi get away with it. And I'm not. Anyone who thinks this is parallel to anything else, obviously not.
Nope. Just pure coincidence. So,
I don't know what you speak. This
I don't know what you're talking about either. So, Freeman mentions that Mariner and Quark are catching up, and she says, "Oh, exchange." Or is it Kira who says exchanging war stories? So that puts Mariner on DS9 at the time that we saw DS9, which is a really cool idea.
Which we're going to have to look for a young ensign now, aren't we?
Yeah, young ensign who it could be.
And sort of go, could that be her?
Yeah, we can headcanon who she is in the episodes.
Haven't they referenced it before she was on there? Didn't she mention...
They referenced it, but I don't think they specified the time scale. And the fact that she was in DS9 when we were watching DS9 makes it even more cool to me.
I always assumed that was the case, only because this is set so recently after when DS9 would have finished. For it to be anyone in the past was either during that or before, which it pretty much
sure how many years after
it wouldn't have been Deep Space Nine when, Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, before that, it was like Cardassia had just left when we entered Deep Space Nine, hadn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were still in rubble.
Yeah, I assumed there was a space between when DS9 finished and when we pick up in Lower Decks that it could have slotted in. But
I thought there'd been a bit of a time, not a big time jump, but a bit of a time.
It's a few years, isn't it? But we now know that is when Mariner was there. So yeah, you've just finished your rewatch. Shame you could have been on the lookout.
Yeah, Sorry. No. I want to go into what we leave behind.
Kira says when you're exchanging war stories, means that it's got to be somebody. We've got to look for a young ensign that Quark mingles with in some way.
Yeah.
So,
It's getting more and more difficult. But next time anybody's doing a DS9 rewatch,
we're getting more and more clues. So that's what.
Well, you just got to imagine, just after a scene with Quark, when we go over to what Worf's up to, then Mariner just walked in.
That's when Mariner's in it, yeah.
It's like Vera and Cheers, we never quite see her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that episode. We've been watching Cheers recently where they're having a food fight or something and she comes in just covered in the food, and that's why you can't hear her in that episode.
It was so good at that.
Yeah. I'm sure I've said this before, but I would love someone to do a TV show where it's just all the unseen characters hanging out together. So you get like Mrs. Columbo and you get, I was going to say Diane from Twin Peaks, but we did see Diane in the revival and that was
Maris
contentious.
From Frasier, which is also been announced today to be coming to Paramount Plus. They've just greenlit a 10-episode thing.
Yeah, not to disparage
Home Improvement.
Yeah.
We always used to hear them talking over the fence, but I don't think we ever saw him.
Yeah,
that's it.
No, you never saw him, but you saw bits of his face at any given time.
We always heard him giving advice to people, but you never actually saw him.
Yeah, all these characters, I want to see him hanging out somewhere.
No, Mrs. Columbo you can't have either because she was played by Kate Mulgrew, Janeway.
Yes, she was.
There you go. But that was canonized as Columbo canon. So anyway, we won't get into that again.
It was done by Columbo's studio.
Originally,
yeah, but they changed the mind because it didn't do very well. So they retconned it and said no, she was married to a detective called Columbo, but not that one. And then after a few episodes, she got divorced and wasn't Mrs. Columbo anymore.
Did they do a few episodes? I thought they just did a.
They did like one season and it got cancelled halfway through. And
one episode.
No, yeah, I don't know whether they've released the rest of the season, but yeah, that's actually what happened. It's worth having if you've got a few minutes, it's worth reading the Wikipedia just for the tumultuous history of Mrs. Columbo.
Yeah.
Anyway,
one of the series of Columbo in the DVDs, if anyone's looking for it.
Yeah. Quack gets the last laugh. So there we go. I like the fact that I'll take that. And it finishes on a laugh from Quack. So yeah,
you're chasing him.
Yes. At this stage,
tries to swallow it.
I also want to give a shout out to the just the dumb Ferengi who was goes if you exchange this money for Quark bucks, we'll double the amount or whatever. And then Boiler gets just overjoyed, going hey, we don't use money anyway. Only Ferengi who doesn't know that.
And at the minute, I am tempted to say this is my favourite episode of Lower Decks ever. But I know that's partially because of how much I love DS9, and it's probably a bit of recency bias, but that's where I'm putting it right now. This is the one I enjoyed the most on the first watch of it.
I could go with that. I'm not sure if I could my favourite because I've not thought of which is my favourite.
No, neither have I really.
Getting them new all the time, and I'll probably go tomorrow. This is my favourite, and last week I'll have gone. This is my favourite, and because I am absolutely loving Lower Decks. I don't think the put wrong.
Yeah,
no,
but I would say I want to sit down. The makers of the new Quantum Leap. I don't know if you guys have seen any of it, but
not yet. I've not heard great things.
It's almost like they go out their way not to have stuff like in the original series, like the handset, which goes bloop bloop bloop. That's gone. They've got this little triangular one. Anything is different from the original. And I want to sit them down in front of this episode of Lower Decks and go, this is how you do fans up. This is how you get the fans to enjoy what you've made now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate stuff that takes an established thing and it's almost like they're embarrassed by it. It's well, don't do it if you're embarrassed by the thing. Just
because it's a continuation. If they're going to do it the way they've done it, they may as well done it as a reboot and just ignore the original series. But at the same time, they try and that's another story. But it's just this is a much better way of referencing something from the past. It's just so.
Yeah, loved it.
This is how to do a homage to a series that we all loved.
What I did not love, however, was the Enterprise episode Bound,
I did
which
not either.
we're now going to move on to. Yeah, so I didn't have any strong memories of this one, and I think I know why now, rewatching
I
it.
think I remember this better than it was.
I think
That's
I
why I
did.
have.
I remember a lot of
remember
people.
this as being a pirate episode, and we got some culture on the Orions that we hadn't had previously. And
That's the thing, like, people talk about this episode like it was incredibly progressive in some way because it showed that the women were not the slaves, the men were the slaves, and it reframes your understanding of the Orion women. And it's like, yeah, okay, technically it does that, but it does it in such a perfunctory way that we don't explore the ramifications of that or the meaning of that or do anything with it. So,
And they also
is there
don't
any
make
point to it?
they also don't make any sense of that to the way we saw them in the original series, where they were out and out shown as being slaves, as being sold as property, as not doing anything like they're doing in this episode. So it doesn't really make sense to that. But I did like the idea, and
I like the
think those are
idea.
things I remembered. I remember the captain being this really good character actor, and I remember seeing that guy in loads of other things, and I still enjoyed him. I mean, the acting was fine in this, but it's like amongst the kind of slave girls. But it was, yeah, I mean, the whole thing with it seemed progressive at the time, but maybe it was progressive for the time and doesn't really hold water now. Because
I'm not even
it's
sure
great
it
to give them
was.
some agency. Well, you gave them some agency, but then you undercut that by having Trip being the one who saves the day, as opposed to the all the women on the ship who you've already established aren't affected by it. But no, the one guy who's not affected by it, he's the one who saves the day.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it should have been like that animated episode, the Lorelei signal.
That it should have been sort of Horsey takes command and get me. I need a security detail, all female, and
yeah, that's what it should have been. But anyway, we'll run through the salient points, what there are of them. There's a nice joke right at the start, which has nothing to do with the main plot, but where they're going, oh, well, this planet's got lizards that fly. So you're like, yay, dragon planet. We should have done that. That'd have been.
Yep.
And there's rumours to breathe fire.
Yeah, that'd have been much more interesting. Let's go to Dragon World.
Yeah.
And Archer wants to make friends with the Orions because they're after him. And let's not forget that during the run of Star Trek Enterprise, Archer gets arrested and held captive by just about every single race in the entire galaxy. Like, it got really silly at one point.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that bugs me about Enterprise when I watch it back, like, we know it's Starfleet first getting out there, so it's the earliest. So they've not got the great technology. They've not got shields. The transporters are dodgy. They don't get phase cannons straight away, and the lowest generation of them. The torpedoes don't work properly when they first get them. But every other race that they bump into at this time is at the same technological level.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Yeah.
They should be getting absolutely twatted by the Klingons, the Orions, who've been out there and are used to fight and all that. They've got a piss poor ship compared to everyone else, or they should have.
Yeah, I never considered it that way.
And it just bugs me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's not like it's the genius of the crew that makes up for the shortcomings, because the crew generally, I do feel like at this stage they'd made that many Trek shows in such quick succession that they were basically just ticking off boxes like, we need an engineer. All right, Trip, fine. Do you want to give him any personality? A little bit, but don't go mad. We need a helmsman. Right, that can be Merriweather. Do you want to give him any personality? Not at all. Carry on.
And less personality. We will take Trip and minus some personality for Mayweather.
Yeah. And then Reed, what's he? He's English. Anything else? Do you want to give me any more notes? Nope, that's it. He's English. That'll do.
English,
uptight?
no
Because we're going
personality.
very stereotypical English here.
stereotypical English with no personality.
Yeah. So, I don't feel that the crew makes up for the technological shortcomings. Anyway, Archer and Reed, though, get a lap dance, or pretty much a lap dance, which is very nice for them.
Yeah.
And,
because this is obviously showing the progressiveness of the women that they're giving them a lap dance.
Yeah, well, it does flip
They're
it.
using the feminine wiles against the men. It's like meant to. I didn't mind that as showing men to be fools for women. Like, that's a fine way of showing it, and showing the women are using their sexuality against the men.
But
I thought that was okay.
It's like you talk about how it's undercut, because once the women are there and they're wandering around the ship and everything, and Archer starts getting reports like everyone's being distracted, and he says, right, well, we'll order them to wear clothes. No, you will talk to your male crew members and tell them to sort themselves out.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so true.
Like,
yeah. Again, it's almost like it was good for the time, maybe. Like maybe that's why so many of us remember it fondly as being progressive, because next to some other shows at the time, mind you, we had Buffy.
It's actually very much. This could have been an episode of TOS very easy. With the entire thing, how it's the sexism and everything. It's very much what TOS would do for this sort of episode.
But even then, like, you had Kirk lecturing Charlie X on not being lecherous, so...
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just also find the one thing you can also say about TOS versus Enterprise is they are so bad in the show at playing like evil. So like it always comes off so panto-ish every time they're possessed by something and and I'm sorry, Scott Bakula, I love you to pieces. You're a wonderful actor. You don't play evil well, or certainly not here. It's so kind of like, oh, well, I shall destroy them all then if you'll be my bride. It's kind of goes into that territory. I mean, the only one who does a half decent job of it is the guest star, who's the other engineer.
The other engineer,
Rated very well. Any of the main cast, though, they're fucking awful.
Yeah, like there's this awful scene with Reed and Mayweather in the gym, and I don't know whether it were meant to be funny or whatever but basically it's just all a big masturbation metaphor, like, oh, we need to hit the gym, oh, you want to put the harder weights on there, blah blah blah. So just go home and have a wank, lads.
Like he goes, we once picked up some Deltons, which is mentioning motion picture.
Yeah, there you go.
Deltons are like, but they take vows.
Oh, sorry. One very minor thing I wanted to throw in just while I remember as well. When the Orion captain's on board giving the women to Archer, he mentioned, he goes, like, there's some wine or liquor or whatever it is, like some booze, which he's pouring from them, and goes, oh, yes, it's it's from the Gorn. And it's like, yes, because when they finished marauding a planet and killing all the life forms, they like to make some nice wine. I
like that, though. I like that, you get a Gorn, like, tasting wine, like, giving it all that. And
Gorn sommelier.
And it's very long. It's got a very long taste. Like, is that the or the Oh no, this one's the or the
even the way they showed it in the original series, but especially the way they developed it masterfully in Strange New Worlds. You can't pitch them stopping and going, oh, fermentation's off on this one, fuck.
Yeah, let's go stamp the grapes. Who knows? I mean, again, maybe we need a Gorn cooking show.
So why shouldn't they be able to make wine?
Just because they're feral as children, it doesn't mean they can't grow up to appreciate wine.
Yeah.
Also, James, you raise a good point. I'm talking about representation. Do we have a Gorn here representing? No, we don't. And I'm just talking about them like they've got no voice of their own.
Absolutely. The Gorn should be made to put clothes on so that people can control themselves when they look at the Gorn.
Oh, it's all lizardy. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they like the green of the Orion women.
Well, you never know. You never know. So, again, I do feel like I'm coming down a bit too hard on this episode. And maybe part of it, like you say, Dr. Squeeze, we're judging it from what we would expect from a show now if it's going to deal with these issues. And it doesn't mean that it was right back then, but you've got to give it a bit of leeway for not doing it as well. But stuff like this is bad.
And you guys have kind of won me over to your way of thinking, because you've like Elliot was pointing out, they did it better in the original series. They were more progressive in all ways.
So you get the woman goes to Archer's quarters and she's like, "Oh, I'm your slave. I'll do anything." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "I don't want a slave." But then he's just about to shag her anyway. So it's like, okay, Archer, technically you've said she's not your slave and she said she's choosing to do this, but there is still a question of consent there, because even though you've said, "I'm not treating you as a slave," she has still been ordered, as far as you know at the time, to be your slave. So I would expect that you would, rather than just going, "Oh, okay, you're no longer a slave, that means I can do it." Like, you need to give her a bit of space, Archer, to explore this notion.
Been affected here by pheromone.
He is.
Yeah, and they even put in a line just as a sort of excuse. It's like, well, what if I said I wanted to do this? Well, that would be okay. Let's get it on.
But yeah, as Elliot says, though, he is under the influence at the time, so maybe.
I know, but it's. And by the way, we haven't mentioned this. The woman who's playing the lead slave girl, who's with Archer, played Zial for a couple of episodes in Deep Space Nine, Ducat's daughter, and she was in last week's episode. We watched a Voyager, the woman on the race.
Yeah, there we go. So a frequent Trek guest star. The Zial casting thing, and we will get to it as we move through the Dominion War, but that was good fun. And I think it was Ira Stephen Bear who at one point said, "Yeah, once we realised we'd recast her the third time, I just wanted to do it every single time she appeared." But, you know, we had to keep some consistency. But that would have been funny if we were doing a different person every single time. Then, yeah, the men are all sweaty. And this is what you were talking about with having to shoot the aliens. Is, "I'm going to kill them all, and don't you dare override my order." And take T'Pol to the bridge.
Oh, and another thing, when you mentioned T'Pol, there's a bit where they've got when the slave girls are in the holding cell, and Archer's hands moving towards the unlock button slowly, and T'Pol's just watching it like wait. It's only when it gets over the button, it's like, "Captain," it's like there was no reason she would wait that long apart from dramatic tension of the episode. It doesn't make any fucking sense to reality.
No, true.
As soon as you saw his hand moving over, you go, "Captain, I think you're being affected again."
It's often put out that Star Trek suffered from franchise exhaustion.
Yeah.
But the big problem they had was they're stuck with the same producers.
Yeah, that was it.
Writers. Like, the new Trek, fair enough, we've got Alex Kurtzman, he's the executive producer, he's overseeing it all. But we have different producers and writers on every show. There's a different team making them all. So we're getting lots of different things coming out.
Well, they very sensibly copied the Marvel model. So they've got the Kevin Feige, which is Kurtzman, and then different people in each film. Great. In different series in this case.
And that's it. I mean, some of these writers on Enterprise had done 14 years of straight Star Trek at this point, and you do run out of ideas. And it's notable.
TNG, DS9, and Voyager all ran for 170, give or take a few, which is a lot to come up with brand new ideas constantly. That's why you need different people.
Yeah, and you can see this episode aside, there are a couple of clunkers in season 4, but generally season 4, I think, is generally agreed as the best of Enterprise. Yeah. And it was because they brought Manikoto on as the showrunner, and he came in with fresh ideas and wanted to do all this stuff. And Brian Fuller came on, I think, mid-season 3 as well. And so you had these fresh, hungry newters with great ideas. And sadly, that's when it got canned.
It actually made me very sad to see Manny Koto's name on this episode because he's a great writer, and this is below his usual standard.
It really is.
But it's like I do wonder. Actually, I want to look into this now. I wonder how many of the episodes where you've got like the Enterprise episode where Archer's fascinated with his chair being uncomfortable, and everyone's fascinated about something, and that mirrors an episode of Deep Space Nine. I wonder if a lot of them were written by the same people because a lot of the writers, as you say, went through it all.
Probably,
like in Enterprise, you start seeing because it's the fourth show in a row, and it's the time when you did literally half a year of programming for it. And you start seeing in Enterprise stories that are being done in TNG, DS9, and Voyager already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you saw that quite often.
Yeah, you really did. And, even really good writers like Brannon Braga's a good example. Generally tends to do a bit with time travel and a bit with surreal stuff. And his best episodes are outstanding. But it did get to a point where you were like, yeah, this is your typical Brannon Braga episode. And I'm not knocking him. I couldn't write an episode of TV. But it was clearly fatigue. It's just you've got 6 days to write a script.
Well, essentially, essentially you've got to write a story every 2 weeks for the show.
Yeah, so these are my ideas that I like using.
So you're writing a story every week.
Exactly. So I don't blame him for reusing some of his ideas and remixing them a bit, but that's why, as we've said,
to be fair, when you're writing at that, because that's got to be an intense pace you're writing at. You probably forget that you've already done it. Yeah,
quite possibly.
You probably sat there at your writing desk and you think, oh, what about this is a great idea, and you write it down and the script's there. And it's not till it's made and the fans start watching it and they go, we've seen this.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's a bit of the opposite though. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm out of ideas. Oh, there was this one I wrote for Deep Space Nine. I can reuse that plot. It'll be fine.
It's probably 6 and 1/2, doesn't it?
Yeah, true.
I mean, there are, even, the greatest writers, like, I'm reading a lot of Stephen King books at the minute, but, you read a few of them, and it's okay, here's my main character. He's a recovering alcoholic writer who lives in Maine. Oh, you don't say.
Who was abused as a kid.
Yeah, so, it happens. Anyway, the twist then, which is what we get, where the guy says, no, we're the slaves and they're the masters. But then we do nothing with it whatsoever. It's just made as a statement. That's it. And then to make it even worse, Archer's like, right, we've sent the women back to him. So this guy's told you that he's a slave and you've sent his slave masters back over to him. Could you not have maybe offered him asylum or something to help him? No, we just use us back. That's fine.
Well, again, I feel like we might not have been as nuanced back then. And but it's the man who's the slave this time. So, as opposed to freeing everyone or having a good ending. Yeah,
I mean, that, it would have been an interesting idea, but there needed to be more payoff to it, but it's just dropped there. And, okay. I mean, functionally within the story, whether the women are orchestrating it or they've been ordered to do it, what they do in this story doesn't change.
No.
So,
I
ultimately...
What I'm seeing here is you're saying that you think they should bring down their slave empire, which brings a lot of money to the economy of their world. I think you're being anti-growth and anti-economy.
You're right. I probably am. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're against the Orion slave girls or men becoming slave to the girls, you're anti-business, clearly.
I think what they probably should do is give a tax cut to the women because they are the slave owners.
And trickle down to the men.
Trickle down to the slaves. So yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I just need to look at it from a different angle. You're absolutely right.
I'm glad I can be the voice of reason.
As long as they don't do a U-turn on it or anything like that, we'll be absolutely fine.
Madness.
And then
all right, there'll be a U-turn on the U-turn. We'll still get the tax cut for the Orion slave girls.
yes. So it almost, I say, because there is a scene after it. But for a minute, it feels like we're going to do a proper TOS jokey freeze frame ending, like we get to Paul. Is that a joke to Paul?
Oh God, this is the other thing. Watching Backtrack, you knows how many times they use the over-the-top laugh for a joke that isn't that funny. Like they did, used it in the last episode of DS9. They use it in Enterprise. Like they still use it today. It is so cheesy. It just sticks.
It really is. I love in the first Austin Powers film where it parodies it, man. They have the evil laugh, but then the camera stays on them, and it's got them sort of coming down from the laugh, like whoo. Ooh. Oh.
Or like in the Simpsons episode where they've got the B sharps, it's like, wow, the name of our band should be something which sounds hilarious to begin with, becomes progressively less funny every time you hear it. How about the B sharps? Yep, that'll do fine. Yeah.
But then we get, and okay, I am being finicky now because I'm on this rant about how it undercuts the message it's trying to make. But the final scene with T'Pol and Trip, then, he has already made the decision to come back to Enterprise, but he lets her seductively kiss him before he tells her. There might be an issue of
come back.
Yeah, and ask him. There might be an issue of informed consent there, is all I'm saying, Trip. And that's not, again, you probably wouldn't do a scene like that today.
Does this fall into the realms of space magic, though? That because
I think it does.
With T'Pol, he's immune to the Orion slave girls.
I think it does. Yeah. I mean, it's specifically Vulcan space magic, but...
I mean, that's the only reason why I can see to put in the thing of him being immune is because you're forwarding the plot with him and T'Pol. But Jesus Christ, I mean, it's so... Again, it just undermines the whole episode to have a man not affected who then saves the day. Just undercuts.
Yeah, it does.
Like, even worse than they've already done in this episode.
Well, the whole thing with this should have been the women crew members having to take control, back control of the Enterprise.
Yeah. It would have been a lot
better. And then you finish with Archer saying something like, well, maybe women being in charge isn't such a bad thing.
I would actually like that, but how bad it would be.
It's doing us well in this country, innit?
What? Come on, absolutely.
We're not against women being in charge. Just pick the right woman. That's all we're asking.
And because of the changes to our country and everything, if you want to support Retrek as a podcast, don't give us anything. Can you please give money to things like the Joe Rogan show that's got millions of subscribers and gets paid and everything? If you financially support them, it will come down to us. So don't support little podcasts like us or anything like that. Joe Rogan, who's the other big one? All these actors that have got podcasts, Kevin Smith, they're the ones that you need to throw the money at. So... yeah. Please support them, don't support us. Anyway, so yeah, that's
economics humor.
Yeah, that's bound from Enterprise then. So next week we've got the next episode of Lower Decks, which we don't know what it is and we don't know where it'll take us, but we're absolutely looking forward to it.
Oh yes.
And in the meantime, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at RetrekPod. RetrekPod@gmail.com is the email. Search for us on Facebook. Search for us on YouTube. We're all over it everywhere. Dr. Squee, you've got plenty going on with the Dr. Squee show at the minute.
I do. So I've realised we never use the banners anymore. So like there's the Twitter one anyway. We need to update these a bit.
We do.
Yes, for this week's, so I just had Nicola Bryant was the episode which I showed. I'm just about to, so for Squeefest, obviously we did all the interviews back to back, and I'm releasing them every week as I release them on the Dr. Squee show. So I'll release Nicola Bryant this weekend. Sounds like I'm holding a captive like a slave girl, but that's another story. Mm-hmm. And next week, I haven't actually thought about it. I might do Sam Stone. I don't know. Sam Stone, let's just say we're doing that one because I'm trying to mix them up so we don't because I interviewed a couple of Doctor Who guests in a row, so I'm trying to mix that up. And also,
I won't tell David that you're going to do Sam Stone next week.
yeah, this is sounding worse by the minute. But the one thing I don't want to do is release all the ones near the end of Screefest last, because that's when I'm the most tired and probably.
Yeah, you need to mix it up. But yeah,
We'll have a
all
delirious
of those
episode next week.
all of those are on YouTube as well. And thanks for trekking with us this time. We will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh!
You didn't
Yeah.
kill the
What
tunes.
happened?
Press
don't-
again.
It went. Let's try again.
Bonus content.
Space. Fascinating.
That's more like it. That's how you